Okay, y'all, in this recording what we're going to do is look at the various slides associated with Lab Practical 2 in AMP2. The 5 slides represent the thymus gland, the trachea, the lungs, lymph node, and also the spleen. Now, the images I'm using here are available to you on D2L, but what I'm actually going to do in this recording is talk about the various structures you want to be able to identify. So our first one here is the thymus gland, and our thymus gland, let me change that a bit. So the thymus gland here, and there are 3 terms we want to know for this slide. That's going to be the lobule, the cortex, and the medulla. Let me outline a lobule. So our thymus gland is composed of multiple small lobular structures called lobules. Okay, so there's one here, and if you were to trace another one, let me get this. So this over here, this would be a lobule. You can see a portion of a lobule over here as well. So kind of each individual section represents a lobule. Now, each lobule has a cortex and a medulla, okay? And what we're going to see here are cortex. So we should remember that the cortex always refers to the outer region, and then the medulla represents the inner region of our structure. Now, the cortex is going to stain darker, okay? So as you look at this, what you'll see, this darker area here, so this whole area here, this would represent the cortex. So I'm just going to put a blue strip around it, okay? Now, the medulla, which should be a little bit lighter here, this is this inner circle here. So this lighter pink area here, that would represent the medulla, okay? Now, let me erase all that just to give you a clean view here. Okay, so again, what we see here, whole structure, this is a lobule. I'll leave that outlined. Lighter portion located here, this represents the medulla, and this outer region, slightly darker purple, represents the cortex. The second slide we want to be familiar with is the lymph node, and there are 3 portions associated with the lymph node. That is our capsule, the cortex, and the medulla. What you'll see, and as I mentioned in lab, what I always think about is this layer here that reminds me of a layer of uncooked bacon. Okay, so this strip right there, running all the way between, this would be our capsule. The capsule represents the outer covering of our lymph node. Okay, now the cortex, again representing an outer structure. The key for the lymph node and the cortex are these circular structures here. Okay, so you will see these somewhat circular structures here. They're called germinal centers, but wherever you find these germinal centers, this section, this whole strip here, this would represent the cortex. And then that leaves everything out here. But what you notice, no dark circles, right? So if you look at this area, which is the medulla, no dark circles. You have the circular patterns here, but as soon as you move into the medulla, those circular patterns are no longer present. And once you've done that, you are now at the medulla. So that whole area there represents the medulla of our lymph node. Okay, the third slide here represents lung tissue here. Now, everything that you see that is pink, so literally all the pink outlining here, this is going to represent what we call simple squamous epithelial. So I'll just label it here. So everything that is pink, you can't go wrong with this, represents simple squamous epithelial tissue. Okay. Now, in regards to the other 2 structures that you need to be able to identify, that is simple squamous epithelial, but the other 2 are going to be alveolus and a capillary. The alveolus is a large circular structure. So what we see here, this would be one alveolus. Another large circular structure, alveolus, right? So you can see these large circular structures here would be alveoli, or each one is an alveolus. Now, the capillaries are small little circles, okay? And they tend to be in thicker areas. And again, y'all, they will be small. So what you see if you look right here, you see that little circle, or over here. another little circle. These little circles represent our capillaries. Or again, a singular one, just capillary. Okay, so our fourth slide is the trachea. Unfortunately, there's a little, when I uploaded these images, I can't get this bottom part. So I know it says spleen, but just, ignore that. Let me put an X through that. So no spleen. Let me get rid of this here. What we're looking at here, this is our trachea. Okay. So the slide up here up top, which is just circled, or let me just show again, this slide here, this is our trachea, and that's what we want to focus on. We're going to identify a couple of things. First and foremost, this open space here, this is called the lumen. The lumen, again, as I mentioned, is just an open space. This is where air would be flowing through the trachea. Now, if you look closely here, what you're going to see is a row of cells running here. And the row of cells here, this is our pseudostratified columnar epithelial tissue. So let me just bracket these cells. So from here to here, this strip. And one nice thing about the trachea is that it's very segmented. So you'll have a strip of this, a strip of this, a strip of that as you go through. So again, these column-shaped cells here, these are pseudostratified columnar columnar epithelial tissue. Okay, now there is craziness in the middle. This is blood vessels. You can actually see the little blood cells here and here, but we're not worried about that. You want to skip over that and then focus on this whole portion. So I'm just going to do a big circle here. You see light pink with little circular areas and then hot pink or kind of bright pink dots there. That whole area there is an area of hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is what creates the ring appearance of the trachea and gives it structural support. Okay, so those are the terms you want to know for the trachea. Again, that's our lumen, the open space. Our row of cells here with cilia, they are the pseudostratified columnar epithelial, and then the hyaline cartilage. Okay, also our last slide here, and again, the tab got pulled up on the other one, but this would be our spleen. And there's only two terms to know here for the spleen, that is red pulp and white pulp, and it's pretty straightforward. Everything that is pink is red pulp. Okay, so when you see pink or red here, and that would literally be all of this pink stuff here, this is all red pulp. Now, what we do see here for white pulp, I'm going to color this blue, the white pulp is actually purple, okay? So if you look closely, you'll see a little purple area here. There's also a little purple area there. And that's what you're looking for with white pulp. You're looking for these circular areas of dark purple. And I don't know how dark that is, but to me, it's much more purple than pink. And that's what you want with white pulp. They will always be singular. They will always be purple because white pulp is made up of our white blood cells or leukocytes. And so white blood cells are stained purple.